Hi, this is Hristo and Emily, and you are listening to the MAPASGEN podcast.
So glad to be here for this.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one today. Have you ever caught yourself reacting to something like just a totally minor inconvenience?
Oh, absolutely.
Like maybe a sudden loud noise or, getting a slightly stressful email from your boss, and you react with this intensity that just completely surprises even you.
Yeah, where you just snap.
Exactly. You snap, and then you look back at your own behavior a few hours later, right? When the dust is kind of settled, and you think, where did that even come from?
Right, like that wasn't me.
Yeah. Why did I just do that? That doesn't feel like me at all. Or, on the flip side, maybe you look at someone else, like someone who seems just endlessly patient all the time.
Which is always annoying, honestly.
Right. Or someone who just seems constantly on the edge of a total outburst. And you have to ask yourself this really highly personal, almost uncomfortable question.
Which is what we're digging into today.
Right. Is our core character pre-written in our code?
It really is probably one of the most unsettling questions you can actually ask yourself.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because when you look at your own impulsivity, right, or your baseline level of fear, or just your fundamental drive in life, is all of that just handed to you at conception?
Exactly. And to take it to the absolute extreme, and this is what we're really exploring in this deep dive, is it actually possible to be biologically born a bad guy?
Wow. Yeah, putting it that way really highlights the fear people have.
Because I think when people hear the word genetics applied to behavior, they immediately picture a life sentence.
Yes, they really do.
They imagine the sealed envelope that they're handed at birth, right? And it contains all their flaws, their limits, their temper.
Just here are your inevitable failures. Good luck.
Exactly. It feels incredibly fatalistic. Like if my genes say I'm going to be an angry, anxious person, then, well, I'm just going to be an angry, anxious person.
And there's nothing you can do about it.
Right. It's a very heavy, almost oppressive way to look at yourself.
And, it is completely understandable why people feel that way, especially given how science is often communicated to us by the media.
Oh, for sure. Lots of scary headlines.
Exactly. But today, our mission for this deep dive is to explore the biological architecture of our character. And we're going to be using the curated sources from MAPASGEN to do it.
Yes, which are fascinating.
You really are.
Ugh.
And what we're going to do is uncover whether our DNA is actually this rigid, unchangeable script that dictates our destiny, or, and this is the important part, if we actually possess the power to kind of tune our biological inheritance.
I really like that word. Tune.
Yeah, we are going to systematically dismantle that whole dramatic, fatalistic view of genetics.
Well, I am very ready to dismantle it because honestly, if we're just meat machines running on a pre-written script, it makes all our efforts to, grow and change feel a bit pointless.
Absolutely. So we're moving entirely away from the idea of genetics as a predetermined destiny. I want you, the listener, to start picturing your mind in your biology not as a locked vault, but as an office. Or like a garden.
Okay, an office or a garden. I can visualize that.
This is a foundational shift in how we think about this stuff. Because an office can be incredibly well managed, right? Or it can be completely chaotic.
Oh, yeah. We've all worked in both.
Right. And a garden can be meticulously cultivated, or it can be utterly neglected and overgrown with weeds.
So the DNA is what then?
Your genetic code provides the foundational structure. The walls of that office, the layout of the desks, or, the actual seeds in that garden.
Got it.
But how that system actually operates on, like a random Tuesday afternoon, how it processes a really stressful week, or what eventually blooms in the soil that is a highly responsive system.
Okay, so it's not locked.
Not at all. It's something we can absolutely learn to understand and manage and profoundly influence.
I love that framing, the responsive system, because it really gives the power back to us. But before we get to the beautiful cultivated garden part, we really have to look at a moment in recent history where genetics was absolutely treated like a locked vault.
Yes. We have to start with the extreme.
A moment where that fatalistic view was taken to its absolute limit, and it honestly completely turned the justice system upside down.
The implications of this story from the MAPASGEN sources are just staggering.
They really are. We need to go to Italy. The year is 2009. We're in a courtroom, and a man is on trial for a very, very serious crime.
And, the stakes here could not be higher. This is a situation where society is demanding accountability.
Right. Usually in a courtroom, the arguments are pretty straightforward, right? You argue about alibis, you argue about motives.
You present forensic evidence.
Exactly. You argue about what the person consciously chose to do. But in this case, in a truly shocking precedent-setting move, the defense lawyer stands up and essentially argues that his client is not fully responsible for his actions.
Which is wild.
And the reason he gives: because of his DNA.
Yeah. It was a moment that sent an absolute shockwave through both the legal and scientific communities.
I mean, I can imagine.
The lawyer literally introduced genetic testing as evidence in a criminal trial. He argued that his client possessed a specific variant of the MAOA gene.
The MAOA gene.
Right. Now, historically, some journalists had kind of sensationalized this specific variant. They dubbed it the, and I'm using air quotes here, the warrior gene.
Oh, I've heard that phrase.
Yeah, it's a label that we are going to completely deconstruct and discard today because it is incredibly misleading.
Good, because it sounds like a sci-fi movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in that courtroom in 2009, the defense painted this picture of a man whose biology heavily predisposed him to impulsivity and aggression. They argued that his genetic code made him fundamentally less culpable for the crime he committed.
And here's the part that just, shatters my understanding of how society functions.
Hurt.
The judge actually believed it. The judge listened to this argument, looked at the printout of a genetic test, and legally accepted that a microscopic protein in this man's brain reduced his culpability.
It's hard to wrap your head around.
The judge actually reduced the man's sentence by a whole year, specifically stating it was because he carried this gene variant.
Let's really unpack the philosophical weight of this for a second, because I really don't want us to just gloss over it.
We can't gloss over it. It strikes at the absolute core of human agency.
Right. Our entire justice system, our society, our daily interactions, the contracts we sign, our marriages, everything is built on the concept of free will.
Yes. The idea that you are the author of your choices.
Exactly. The fundamental idea that you, the listener, as a conscious adult, make choices, and you are responsible for the consequences of those choices.
Yeah.
If a judge legally accepts that your DNA can, force your hand or even just heavily tip the scales of your decision-making.
What does that mean for free will?
Yeah. Are we really just passengers in our own bodies? It creates a profound existential and legal crisis. It really does. Because if we start reducing human behavior to a mere sequence of nucleotides, where does the self end and the biology begin?
That is the terrifying question.
The ruling implied a terrifying kind of determinism. If the judge's logic holds up as a universal truth, then every action, good or bad, is just the inevitable result of chemical reactions.
Things over which we have no ultimate control.
Right. Think about what that does to society. It challenges the very foundation of moral responsibility. If you aren't the author of your actions, how can you be punished for them?
Or how can you be praised for your achievements?
Exactly. It all just becomes biology.
Right. If I do something wonderful, it's just my genes. If I do something terrible, it's just my genes. And wait, this is where I have a massive, massive bone to pick with the judge's logic here.
Let's hear it.
I was looking through the MAPASGEN sources, and there is a statistic in there that completely undermines this whole ruling. The sources state that roughly 1 in 3 people in Europe carry this exact same MAOA gene variant.
Yes, 1 in 3.
1 in 3.
That is correct. It is an incredibly prevalent variant in the population.
So let's play this out practically, right? If we follow the judge's precedent, does that mean a third of the population is legally entitled to a discount on bad behavior?
That's a great question.
If I cut in line at the grocery store and start yelling at the cashier, can I just hand them my genetic sequence and say, hey, sorry, I get a 33% discount on being a jerk today. It's in my code.
Right. I've got the paper to prove it.
Or if someone commits fraud, do they get 33% less jail time? It makes absolutely no sense when you look at the population scale. You cannot have a third of society operating under entirely different rules of accountability. It would be absolute chaos.
You are absolutely right to push back on that. And that is precisely the critical flaw in the deterministic argument.
It has to be.
And it is exactly why we have to be so incredibly careful with how we interpret genetic data, especially in a legal or moral context. The presence of this gene variant is common.
Yeah, millions of people.
Millions upon millions of people have it and walk around every day perfectly fine, not committing crimes, living peaceful lives.
So how do we synthesize this then? Because clearly the judge saw something compelling enough to reduce the sentence. What was the scientific reality there? How do we acknowledge the biology without throwing away free will?
The answer is that this gene variant is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. It does not force a person to commit a crime.
Okay, good.
It does not strip them of their conscious choice or their free will. Instead, what it creates is a biological blind spot.
A blind spot.
Yes, it fundamentally alters the internal environment in which the conscious mind is trying to make a decision.
Okay, I need to visualize this. Tell me more about what a biological blind spot actually means in this context, because I'm trying to imagine how I still have free will if my biology is, creating this blind spot.
Okay, think about driving a car. You are still the driver.
Right.
You are still holding the steering wheel. You are still the one deciding to press the gas or the brake.
Yeah.
That is your free will.
I'm making the choices.
Exactly. But this specific genetic variant changes the condition of your windshield.
Oh, interesting.
When someone with this variant encounters a highly stressful situation, their internal system processes the chemical fallout of that stress differently. It creates a state of immense internal friction.
Okay.
So you are driving, but suddenly your windshield is incredibly foggy. It is thick with condensation.
Ah, I see.
You still have free will, right?
Yeah.
You're still driving, but you have to work significantly harder to see the road clearly and make the right safe choice compared to someone with a perfectly clear windshield.
That makes total sense.
The gene doesn't make the choice to swerve off the road for them, but it absolutely changes the environment in which the choice is made. The judge was swayed because he recognized the foggy windshield, but his mistake was assuming the foggy windshield means you aren't driving.
Wow. That is such a crucial distinction. It makes so much more sense than just saying the genes made him do it. It's about the level of internal resistance they're facing when trying to act rationally.
Exactly. The resistance is real, but the choice is still there.
But to really understand why that windshield gets so foggy in the first place, we have to look under the microscope, right? We need to see what this MAOA gene is actually doing to the brain's internal workflow. So let's step into that office metaphor you mentioned earlier.
Yes, let's look at the actual science of the MAOA gene, and let's do it entirely without the dense jargon.
Please, yes. Keep it simple for me.
MAOA stands for monoamine oxidase A. It is an enzyme. In purely scientific terms, its primary function is to break down and recycle extra chemicals, specifically things like serotonin and dopamine, after they have done their job in the brain.
Okay, so it cleans things up.
Right. Once these chemicals have transmitted their signals, making you feel alert or excited or stressed, they need to be cleared away so the neural system can return to a neutral baseline.
Okay, I love a good metaphor, so let's really build this out. The brain is an office building.
The busy one.
It's a busy, bustling corporation. The chemicals, the dopamine, the serotonin, these are like the memos, the urgent emails, the stacks of physical paperwork constantly flying around the office.
Perfect.
They carry all the messages of daily life. Hey, there's a deadline approaching. Hey, we just ate something delicious. Hey, that car in front of us is braking too fast.
Yes. The constant stream of data.
And the brain, the conscious mind, is the office manager sitting at the main desk trying to read all these memos, categorize them, and make decisions.
That is a perfect setup. Now, in this busy office, the MAOA gene is the cleaning crew.
The cleaning crew, okay.
Their entire job description is to come in and clear the desks at the end of the day. They take the old, already read memos, the spent serotonin and dopamine, and they recycle them.
They get them out of the way.
Exactly. They clear out the physical inbox, they empty the trash cans, they wipe down the whiteboards.
Yeah.
They ensure that when the office manager faces the next task or starts the next hour of the day, the desk is clean and ready for new information.
Which is vital.
Absolutely. A well-functioning, efficient cleaning crew is absolutely essential for a calm, rational office environment.
So if the MAOA gene is the cleaning crew, what exactly happens in the brain of someone with this specific variant, the one the Italian judge saw, the one that 1 in 3 Europeans have?
In someone with this specific variant, the cleaning crew is significantly understaffed.
Oh, no.
They are slow. They are taking incredibly long coffee breaks. The scientific reality is that the enzyme is simply less active. It doesn't break down those chemicals as quickly as the standard variant.
So going back to our office, the memos are piling up.
Yes, the old stress signals from an hour ago aren't being cleared away. The dopamine and serotonin from yesterday's argument are still sitting right in the middle of the desk.
That sounds like a nightmare.
The office manager's trying to work, trying to make rational decisions, but the physical space is becoming incredibly, overwhelmingly cluttered.
I can actually feel the anxiety of that metaphor in my chest right now. Imagine trying to focus on a brand new, delicate task, but your desk is covered in 3 weeks' worth of urgent, red-stamped files that you've already dealt with, but no one has come to take them away.
You'd be paralyzed.
You can't even find your pen. You would feel constantly on edge. The baseline state of your day would just be stress. You would feel deeply overwhelmed by the sheer volume of old, unprocessed paperwork surrounding you.
Exactly. The baseline state of that office is now one of low-level, constant overwhelm. The system is saturated. There is no empty space.
And this is where the behavior comes in.
This is exactly where we see the behavioral translation of the gene. This is where the biology becomes character. Because the desk is incredibly messy, the office manager's capacity to handle new, incoming stress is severely compromised.
They have no bandwidth left.
None. They're at their absolute limit.
Okay, let's put this into a real-world scenario. So it's like when a tiny new problem comes in, let's say getting cut off in traffic.
A classic example.
For a person with a normal cleaning crew, the office manager gets a single memo that says, "Brake quickly, someone cut us off." They have a clean desk, they read the memo, they hit the brakes, they toss the memo in the recycling bin, and the cleaning crew takes it away.
It's processed efficiently.
They move on. They turn the radio back up and keep driving.
Yes. The system handles the incoming stressor, processes it, and resets.
But for someone with a slow cleaning crew, that one tiny new memo about being cut off in traffic lands on a desk that is already a towering mountain of unprocessed stress from the whole week.
It's the straw that breaks the camel's back.
Right. The office manager looks at the mountain, looks at this one new memo fluttering down on top of it, and just completely loses it. The brain reacts as if it's a total system failure simply because the desk was already completely cluttered.
You have just perfectly described the mechanism of impulsivity associated with this gene variant. It beautifully explains the disproportionate reaction.
It's disproportionate to the event, but proportionate to the desk.
Exactly. The external catalyst, the traffic jam, the spilled cup of coffee, the minor disagreement with a spouse, does not warrant an explosive shouting reaction. But the internal state of the office was already at maximum capacity.
Wow.
The system was overloaded before the coffee even spilled.
Yeah.
This is the crucial synthesis we need to take away from this. When that 1 in 3 Europeans randomly loses their cool in a traffic jam, it is not fundamentally a bad character flaw.
It's not them just choosing to be awful.
No, it is not inherent malice. It is an internal cleaning crew running behind schedule. It is a biological system that has reached its absolute limit because it cannot clear the chemical paperwork fast enough.
That is profound. That really changes everything about how you view other people. I mean, maybe even how you view yourself.
You should, yes.
If you're prone to snapping when you're stressed, if you have a short temper, it might not be that you're just a naturally grumpy, difficult person. You might just have a massive backlog on your desk.
Yeah.
You literally just need to give your cleaning crew more time. It shifts the entire perspective from like a moral judgment to a mechanical understanding.
It replaces judgment with curiosity and strategy. When you understand the mechanism, you can start managing the office differently.
How so?
Well, if you know your cleaning crew is slow, you don't take on 50 urgent tasks at once. You don't schedule 3 stressful meetings back to back. You learn to pace the incoming memos.
You manage the flow.
Right. You learn to recognize the feeling of your desk getting full before you explode at a colleague over a minor issue. You take a walk to let the crew catch up.
Okay, so that covers the massive, explosive emotional reactions, the big behavioral swings. Our foundational genetic code, our DNA blueprint dictates how fast our cleaning crew works. But what about the smaller, weirder quirks we have?
The deep nuances.
Right, because human character isn't just about whether you get road rage or not. It's about, things like chronically biting your nails when you are slightly anxious.
Or a sudden inexplicable fear of heights when no one in your family has ever fallen off a cliff.
Exactly. Or a strange obsession with keeping the pantry perfectly organized to the point where it causes tension in your house. Are those tiny, specific, nuanced behaviors hard-coded into our office blueprint too? Like, is there a gene for pantry organization?
This is where the science gets truly mind-bending, and it requires us to expand our view entirely. To answer that, we have to look beyond the blueprint itself. We have to look at something called epigenetics.
Epigenetics, okay.
If your DNA is the basic architectural blueprint of the office building, epigenetics are the modifications written on top of that blueprint.
On top of it.
Yes. The prefix epi literally means above or on top of. These are not changes to the genetic code itself. I'm going to be very clear about that.
Wait, so my DNA isn't mutating. The actual letters of my code aren't changing.
No, your underlying code remains exactly the same. The sequence of letters is unchanged. Instead, epigenetics are chemical tags attached to the DNA structure that dictate whether a specific gene is turned on, turned off, or turned up like a volume dial.
Okay, let's visualize this using our office metaphor because that really helps me. The DNA is the pristine original blueprint rolled out on the architect's table.
Right.
It shows where the walls are, where the doors are, where the windows go. What are the epigenetics in this scenario?
Think of epigenetics as bright sticky notes, plastered all over your biological blueprint by your ancestors.
Sticky notes.
Yes. The original blueprint says, build a door here. But a sticky note placed over it by your grandfather says, keep this door locked at all times.
Oh, wow.
Or the blueprint says, standard office lighting. The sticky note says, keep the lights incredibly dim. These sticky notes are instructions on how to use the blueprint.
Okay, I'm following.
And the most fascinating, almost unbelievable part is that these sticky notes can be written by the environment, the stress, and the experiences of your parents, your grandparents, even your great-grandparents, and then physically passed down to you.
Okay, I have to stop you there.
I know it's a lot.
You are saying that an experience my grandfather had decades before I was even a thought could leave a chemical sticky note on my DNA that changes how my brain operates today.
Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying.
That sounds like science fiction. That sounds like inherited memories, which I thought biology dismissed a long time ago. How do we know this actually happens?
We know because of some truly groundbreaking, highly controlled research, as outlined in the MAPASGEN sources, most notably a fascinating study involving mice.
Mice. Okay, what did they do to the mice?
This study, perfectly and somewhat chillingly, illustrates how these sticky notes are written and inherited across generations. Researchers took a group of mice and introduced them to a very specific, distinct scent, the smell of cherry blossoms.
Cherry blossoms, that's highly specific.
Very. Now, mice do not naturally fear cherry blossoms. It's a neutral, if not pleasant, smell for them. But in the experiment, every time the mice smelled the cherry blossoms, they were given a tiny, mild electric shock.
Oh, wow, okay. So they're conditioning the mice.
Exactly.
They're teaching the mice as office managers that the incoming memo for cherry blossom scent should immediately be associated with the high priority memo for pain and danger.
Precisely. It is classic conditioning. The mice very quickly learned to associate the smell with the shock. They would exhibit intense fear responses, freezing in place, increased heart rate, stress hormones flooding their system just from the smell alone, even when the researchers stopped giving the shock.
Because they expect the pain.
Right. Their biology had adapted to recognize a specific environmental threat. The sticky note was written, cherry blossoms equal danger.
Okay, that makes sense for those specific mice. They experienced the shock, they learned it. That's just memory.
But here is the mind-blowing result. The researchers then bred these mice. The children of these mice, the very next generation, had never been shocked in their lives.
Okay.
They had lived peaceful lives in standard cages. They had never even smelled cherry blossoms. But the very first time they were exposed to the scent of cherry blossoms, they panicked.
Wait, really?
Yes. They exhibited the exact same physiological fear response as their parents. They froze. Their heart rate spiked.
That is incredible. The fear was inherited. The knowledge of the danger bypassed conscious learning entirely and was just there. Like it was pre-installed in the hardware.
And to go even deeper than that, the researchers bred the mice again.
No way.
Yes. The grandkids, the third generation, completely removed from the original trauma, born to parents who also had never been shocked. These grandkids also panicked the moment they smelled cherry blossoms.
That is wild.
When the researchers looked closely at the DNA of these descendants, they found epigenetic changes, those exact chemical sticky notes, on the specific genes related to olfactory receptors, the odor receptors. The blueprint had been modified to be hypersensitive to that specific smell.
Let's really analyze the profound weight of this for a human being. Let's step away from the mice for a second.
Let's do it.
What you're saying is that our bodies inherit warnings from our grandparents' environments.
We do.
The sticky note wasn't a biological defect. It was actually a highly sophisticated survival mechanism. It was the grandfather mouse's biology saying, I encountered a highly specific danger in my environment, and I am going to leave a structural note on the blueprint so my descendants know to avoid it immediately.
Yes, without having to get hurt themselves to learn the lesson.
It is a memory of safety or a memory of danger passed down through generations.
Exactly. It is an elegant, if somewhat haunting, biological adaptation. Your ancestors' environment essentially tunes your biological receptors before you were even born. You were born expecting a certain kind of world based on what they lived through.
Wow.
To apply this to a modern human scenario, let's talk about the fridge.
The fridge.
Yes, let's talk about that weird urge to hoard food that some people have.
Yes, let's explore that. I know a lot of people who struggle with that.
Imagine your grandparents or great-grandparents lived through a historically harsh period, a famine, a war, or an extreme economic depression.
Right, where food was genuinely scarce.
Yes. Survival was a daily grinding struggle. Their biological office was constantly dealing with a massive crisis of hunger. The memos were always flashing red. We're starving. Find calories.
So their system adapts. It writes a heavy, permanent sticky note on the blueprint. Food is incredibly scarce. Whenever you have access to food, hoard it. Eat everything you can. Never, ever assume there will be enough tomorrow.
Yes. The body is trying to protect the future. And generations later, you are born. You were born into a modern world with a grocery store on every corner, delivery apps on your phone.
You have never experienced actual starvation in your life.
But you find yourself today with this inexplicable, deep-seated anxiety around food. You constantly overfill your fridge to the point where things go bad.
Yeah, you buy in bulk even when you live entirely alone.
You check the pantry every night before bed just to look at the cans.
And when you do that, it feels to you like an irrational anxiety. It feels like a weird personal quirk. You might even feel deeply guilty about it, thinking you're just wasteful, or you might worry you have an eating disorder. You judge yourself for it so harshly.
You do.
Yeah.
But according to the science of epigenetics, it's not a broken habit at all. It's actually your internal manager, following an old sticky note that clearly says, make sure we have enough or we will die.
Oh, wow.
Your office is operating perfectly according to the instructions it was given. It's just that the instructions are vastly outdated. They're written for a world that doesn't exist anymore.
I really want to linger on that for a second. You are blindly executing old instructions. The sticky note was meant to save your life. It was a gift from your ancestors, a tool for survival.
A very successful tool since you were here.
Right. But in a modern world of abundance, that same tool just causes chronic anxiety.
Precisely. And understanding this completely changes how we view our own quirks and fears. It removes the profound layer of shame we carry.
It really does.
When you realize that your intense fear of dogs, or your need to sit facing the door in a restaurant, or your compulsive hoarding of canned goods might be an epigenetic echo of an ancestor's trauma, you can look at it objectively. You can separate your conscious self from the biological sticky note.
You can literally say to yourself, thank you, biology. Thank you for trying to protect me, but I am safe now. I don't need this sticky note anymore.
Exactly. It's about acknowledging the past without being ruled by it.
Okay. I love the compassion in that, but I really have to push back here because this brings up a massive question, a really uncomfortable existential question.
Let's hear it. Bring it on.
If we have messy desks and understaffed, slow-cleaning crews fundamentally built into our genetic letters from birth.
Yes.
And we have sticky notes of trauma and fear plastered all over our blueprints from our ancestors' hard lives. Aren't we just trapped?
I see where you're going.
We started this deep dive talking about free will versus determinism. If my baseline processing speed is set by my MAOA genes and my specific phobias and anxieties are set by my grandfather's environment, where exactly is my agency?
It feels like it's vanishing.
Right. I feel like we are right back in the Italian courtroom. Are we really just biological robots blindly executing old instructions, doomed to repeat the anxieties of the past and constantly overwhelmed by our messy desks? Where is the free will in an office that is already built and covered in notes before I even get the keys?
That is the pivotal question.
Yeah.
That is the exact tension that everyone feels when they first learn about this, and it is right here that we reach the most beautiful, empowering, and transformative part of the MAPASGEN philosophy.
Okay, I need some hope here.
This is where we shift the narrative completely away from biological determinism. You are not trapped. You are absolutely not a robot executing a script. To understand why, we have to introduce the core guiding philosophy of how we should view our biology.
Let's hear it.
Here's the phrase. Genes are like seeds, but the environment is the soil.
Genes are like seeds, but the environment is the soil. Okay, I need to visualize this carefully to understand how it gives me my free will back.
Okay, let's break it down.
If my DNA, with its slow cleaning crew and its sticky notes, if that whole package is a seed is still a fixed thing, right? An acorn can only ever become an oak tree. It can never magically become a pine tree. The blueprint is locked inside it.
Correct. The seed contains the potential. It contains the raw drive, the baseline architectural plans, the tendencies. But a seed sitting on a dry, concrete countertop does absolutely nothing.
True.
It is inert. It requires an environment to activate it. It requires soil. It requires water. It requires sunlight and nutrients.
Okay, so the environment turns it on.
Yes. And the environment dictates not what the seed is, but how the seed expresses itself. Will it be a stunted, withered oak tree that barely survives? Or will it be a massive, thriving oak tree that provides shade for 100 years?
The soil makes the difference.
And this isn't just a poetic feel-good metaphor. This is backed by profound longitudinal science.
Show me the science. How does the soil actually change the expression of the seed?
Let's go back to the children who carry the MAOA variant, the exact same variant the Italian judge ruled on, the exact same variant that causes the slow cleaning crew.
The one that creates a backlog of stress, the one that the media wrongly labeled the warrior gene.
Yes, that exact one. Researchers conducted a massive long-term study following a large group of children who carried this exact variant, tracking them from early childhood all the way into adulthood.
So they watched them grow up.
They wanted to see if the gene truly dictated their destiny. Did having this gene mean they were all going to become aggressive or impulsive?
And what did they find?
What they found completely shattered the deterministic view. The results proved unequivocally that the gene itself does not equal aggression. It all depended entirely on the soil they were planted in.
Okay, so let's look at the different types of soil in this study. What happened to the children with the MAOA variant who grew up in what we might call a warm garden?
The researchers looked at the subset of children with the variant who grew up in environments filled with love, security, and consistent support.
A warm garden.
Yes, a place where their emotional needs were met, where caregivers patiently taught them emotional regulation, where the baseline stress levels of the household were manageable.
And how did they turn out?
In this rich soil, the children did not become aggressive. They did not become impulsive criminals. In fact, they turned out to be incredibly successful, calm, and capable leaders.
Wait, really? The exact same slow cleaning crew created leaders?
Yes.
I need to understand the mechanics of that. How does that work in our office metaphor? How does a messy desk make a good leader?
Think about what a slow cleaning crew implies: a buildup of chemicals, right?
Yeah.
It means a highly active, constantly stimulated office. In a warm garden, the office manager is taught from a young age how to categorize the paperwork efficiently.
Oh, they learn to manage it.
Exactly. They are taught coping mechanisms. They learn how to handle a busy desk without panicking. Because their desk is always humming with activity and chemical energy, they develop an incredible capacity for sustained focus.
So it's like a superpower, if harnessed correctly.
They have high stamina. The drive is there, the energy is there, but the environment provided the tools to channel it constructively rather than destructively.
I see. So it's an incredibly powerful engine. It's a high-performance sports car engine. That's the seed. The gene provides raw horsepower.
I love that analogy.
Now, if you take a high-performance sports car engine and you force it to drive on a rocky, unpaved, treacherous mountain road with potholes everywhere.
That is the harsh climate. And that is the other half of the study. The researchers found that it was only the children raised in a harsh climate environments with high stress, abuse, neglect, chronic instability, or violence who saw their powerful drive turn into impulsivity, aggression, and behavioral problems.
Right, because if you put a low-to-the-ground sports car on a rocky dirt road, it's going to crash. The suspension isn't built for it. The wheels are going to spin out.
It can't handle the terrain.
The immense power of the engine becomes dangerous and destructive because there is no traction. That is the overwhelmed office manager exploding at a minor issue because the environment is too chaotic to process.
Exactly.
But if you take that exact same sports car engine with the exact same horsepower and you put it on a smooth, well-maintained, beautifully paved racetrack, the warm garden, it outperforms everything else. It runs perfectly. It wins the race.
That is a brilliant extension of the analogy. The engine itself does not change. The DNA sequence does not change. The biological speed of the cleaning crew does not change.
The seed is the same.
What changes is the terrain they are asked to navigate. What changes is the support system around the engine. This is why we have to completely and utterly abandon the sensationalized label. The so-called warrior gene is merely a label invented by journalists to sell headlines.
It's completely inaccurate.
When you understand the deep science, you realize that in the right hands, nurtured in the right soil, it is actually a leadership gene. It is an innovation gene. It is a drive gene.
That is a massive paradigm shift. It completely reverses the fatalism we talked about at the beginning. We aren't trapped by our seeds. We are simply tasked with being better gardeners.
Perfectly said.
If my seed is a high-performance engine that requires a smooth track, I shouldn't be angry that I struggle on dirt roads. I should focus all my energy on finding or building a smooth track. And this is exactly why MAPASGEN asserts that knowledge is freedom.
Without knowledge, you're just guessing.
If you don't know what kind of seed you have, you are just throwing random dirt on it and hoping for the best.
Exactly. Imagine the implications for parenting.
Oh, they're huge.
If a parent knows the blueprint of their child, if they understand through observation and knowledge that their child has a highly sensitive nervous system or a powerful engine or a slow cleaning crew, they know exactly what kind of soil that child needs to flourish.
They can tailor the environment.
They know that this specific child cannot handle a harsh, highly critical environment. They know this child needs extra time to process transitions, like moving from playtime to bedtime, because their internal desk gets cluttered easily.
Right. You don't just yell at them to hurry up.
You don't punish the child for having a slow cleaning crew. You proactively help the child manage the paperwork.
It transforms parenting, it transforms self-perception, and it transforms how we build our entire lives. Understanding the profound difference between the inherited seed and the cultivated soil brings us directly to how we, as listeners, can actively use the science in our own daily lives right now.
Because this isn't just theoretical biology meant to stay in a lab.
No, this is a practical instruction manual for living. And that brings us to the tools.
Yes. The entire goal of mapping this biological architecture is practical application. To that end, MAPASGEN has released practical applications in the Hub based directly on this science.
Let's talk about them.
The first is a comprehensive guide called Psychogenetics, the Architecture of Character.
So, how does someone actually use a guide like that in their daily life?
The guide acts as an analytical tool to help you perform an audit of your own character. It walks you through a step-by-step process of differentiating which of your traits are likely inherited seeds and which are behaviors shaped entirely by the world around you.
It helps you sort it out.
It helps you identify your own sticky notes. By looking closely at your reactions, your baseline anxieties, and your innate drives, you can start to map out the layout of your internal office.
And once you know the layout,
Once you know which traits are fixed seeds, you stop wasting energy trying to eradicate them, and you start focusing entirely on planting them in better soil. You start deliberately curating your environment, your career choice, and your daily routines to match your blueprint.
okay, speaking of curating our lives, we have to talk about relationships because you don't build a garden alone.
You certainly don't.
And that leads to the second tool highlighted in the Hub, which is the Psychological Compatibility Checklist. This is a tool focused on understanding the behavioral patterns in your family history so you can build your future with open eyes. Now, I have to be honest with you.
Okay, lay it on me.
When I first hear the phrase psychological compatibility checklist based on genetics and family history, I get incredibly skeptical. I really have to push back on this concept.
Please do. It's a provocative title. What is the root of your skepticism?
Well, it sounds dangerously deterministic again. It sounds like something out of a dystopian sci-fi movie.
Like you're swiping left based on a DNA swab.
Right. How does mapping out your partner's family behavioral history actually help a relationship? Doesn't it just give you reasons to run away?
That's a valid concern.
If I use this checklist when I'm dating someone, and I see that my partner has a long lineage of messy desks, or a history of deeply ingrained epigenetic sticky notes about anxiety, anger, or scarcity, doesn't that just make me look at them as a walking time bomb?
You think it kills the romance?
Yeah. Doesn't it reduce romance and human connection to a cold biological risk assessment?
I completely understand that reaction. It is a very common fear when we start mixing biology with romance. But the intention and the reality of this tool are actually the exact opposite of what you are fearing.
Okay, convince me.
It has nothing to do with determinism, and it certainly has nothing to do with creating horoscopes or finding a flawless, perfect biological match. There is no perfect blueprint.
Everyone has messy desks of some kind.
Exactly. The checklist is a tool for radical empathy.
Radical empathy through a checklist. Explain that to me.
Let's go back to our office metaphor one last time. Imagine you share an office space with a coworker. You have to collaborate every day. Now, this coworker frequently snaps at you when deadlines approach. They are incredibly rigid about how the physical files are organized, and they seem to panic if the schedule changes.
If I don't know anything about their background, I just assume they are a controlling, irritable, difficult person.
Exactly.
I take their behavior personally. I get defensive. We fight constantly because I feel like they're attacking me.
Right. You are reacting to the surface behavior. You are judging the output without understanding the machinery. But what if you knew definitively that their internal cleaning crew operates at half speed? What if you knew that their grandfather passed down a bright red sticky note that screams, chaos equals danger. Maintain control at all costs.
Oh. If I knew that, I wouldn't see it as a personal attack against me at all.
You'd see it differently.
I would see an overwhelmed office manager drowning in paperwork, desperately trying to keep the system from crashing.
Yes. You see the struggle, not just the symptom. Mapping the internal manual shifts a relationship from reacting to problems to preventing them.
That makes a lot of sense.
When you understand your partner's biological blind spots, you stop viewing their stress reactions as inherent character flaws or personal insults. You start managing the shared system with deep compassion.
You work together.
If you know their cleaning crew is slow, you don't bring up a highly stressful financial conversation the minute they walk through the door after a terrible commute. You give the crew time to sweep the floors. You say, let's decompress for an hour, and then we'll tackle the budget.
Well, wait, isn't there a danger of self-fulfilling prophecies here? If I know my partner's cleaning crew is slow, might I start treating them like they're fragile? Might I start walking on eggshells, which just creates a different kind of toxic environment?
That is a very astute point, and it's a trap we absolutely must avoid. The goal is not to baby them or excuse bad behavior.
Right, they still have to be accountable.
The goal is co-management. You don't walk on eggshells. You build better communication protocols. You say, I know you need a minute to process this, so I'm going to lay out the issue, and we can discuss it after dinner.
You set boundaries that make sense for their biology.
You hold them accountable, but you do it in a way their system can actually process. You change the soil to support their specific seed. You don't fear the DNA, you accommodate it. You work as a team of co-managers for your shared environment. It turns potential conflict into an opportunity for deep structural support.
That is incredibly powerful. It takes all the mystery, the blame, and the personal offense out of conflict and replaces it with strategy and compassion. It's like saying, I see your blueprint, I see your sticky notes, and I am choosing to help you build a beautiful garden anyway.
It is the ultimate application of the idea that knowledge is freedom. When you map your own architecture and the architecture of the people you love, you are no longer at the mercy of invisible forces.
You're not just reacting blindly anymore.
You are no longer blindly reacting to ancient sticky notes. You become the conscious, active architect of your shared life.
This has been an absolutely profound journey today. We started with the terrifying fear of being born a bad guy, driven by a fatalistic script, and we ended with a blueprint for radical compassion, co-management, and environmental design.
It's quite a shift.
We moved from the courtroom to the garden, but the journey into our code is far from over. We invite you to join us for our next deep dive, where the show will travel 3,000 years back into the past.
I'm so excited for that one.
We are going to look at ancestral genetics and explore how the lives, the diets, and the environments of people who lived millennia ago are still physically echoing in our biological structures today.
It is going to be a fascinating exploration. And as we close this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over in your own time.
Leave us with something heavy.
We talked extensively today about epigenetics, how the experiences, the periods of starvation, the fears, and the traumas of our ancestors left physical, chemical sticky notes on our blueprints. We inherited their memories of safety and danger.
Right.
But epigenetics is not a historical process that stopped in the past. It is an active, ongoing mechanism. It is happening right now in your body today.
That is a heavy realization.
So the profound question you must ask yourself as you go about your week is this. If our current environment, our current daily routines, and our current stress levels are actively generating the sticky notes that will be permanently attached to the blueprints of our great-grandchildren.
Oh, wow.
What memories are we writing into their code right now? With our current fast-paced, perpetually online, screen-addicted, high-stress, modern lifestyles, what instructions for survival are we unknowingly passing down to the future?
Wow. That is a thought that will definitely keep me awake tonight. We are not just the inheritors of the past. We are the ancestors of tomorrow. We are writing the sticky notes right now. Genetic awareness is the base.
Follow us for true stories in co-parenting, genetics, and genealogy.